I have finally made it to 1K. The channel got monetized, and during the last 3 or 4 days, I made $7, which is probably good enough for a big juicy falafel sandwich. So thank you. And I think it's a good time to look back at the history of the channel and how this whole project has evolved over several years. The earliest videos I can find on this channel are from 2019. This was the beginning, and the whole purpose of setting up a channel like this was to showcase my new electric Brompton build and to show you some of the chases that I had. The reason for building the Brompton Interceptor for me was to basically lay down the law on the greenway where the road bikes caused so much trouble and so much pain. I mean, look at this punk. He keeps on racing, and they are very aggressive. Road bikers, in fact, have killed people in collision in New York City and also in other places. And I myself have seen some of that. He's not giving up, is he? So I bought this cheap camera. This was not a GoPro. That's why the footage is kind of low res and wobbly. But I was already able to outrun them. And what I would do would be I would slog along around 16, 17 miles an hour, because that was something most road bikes, most anybody did not go past. The only people who went faster than 16, 17 are these aggressive racer types like this guy. And so I would wait for them to separate themselves from the crowd. You can see that everybody else is just slogging along. People on the city bike, maybe 12 an hour. Some of the road bikes, 14, 15. And then there would be something like this guy coming along. And then I would speed up and would catch up with them and pass them and film the whole thing and put them on YouTube with some music. You can still go to my playlist, the humiliation playlist. Here you can see him getting passed, and he's still trying to struggle. They are all like that. They never give up. They're gonna chase you for 20 miles and they will never give up. And it's worth considering that my bike was still logged at 500 watts at this point. It was the Brompton bike I bought. I already had the 60-tooth chain installed, but it was impossible for any of them to pass me. They can follow. This is a speed of about between 25 to 30 miles an hour on the Hudson Greenway on the west side of Manhattan. And they can keep up. I mean, these are some of the strongest men on road bikes out there, and they could do this for maybe 5 minutes or so, but eventually they do get exhausted and they fall back. Some of them don't have such an advanced bicycle. Some of them are on maybe a bicycle that costs less than $1,000, but even then it's more like the personality. And some of them are not that young either. Typically they are dressed for the occasion, so they have some kind of an aerodynamic spandex or some kind of a nylon clothing, and definitely biking shoes. Here he seems very happy. And then I speed up, and I always outrun them, and they look really frustrated, which to me was very satisfying. And they follow for a few minutes if they have the power, but eventually they do all fall back. Here is one home-built electric bike. This is a Dayhan with a 1,000 watt motor in the rear. This guy became a friend. That electric Dayhan was really, really powerful. He was the one guy who didn't even need to bother racing these guys. See, this guy is trying to pass me, and then I would switch up to 700 watts, and there he is. Remarkably fit, though. You can see that he has legs. The bike is not that expensive. None of these bikes are even at $2,000. At least I don't see it. And this guy lasted for a long time before falling back. This is one e-bike trying to chase me, or I guess at least to keep up. This was the only video I did with an electric bike. This is with the old camera. There is no image stabilization, so it's awfully choppy footage. But the thing is, what I discovered was he might be speed limited to 20 miles an hour. And he's really not aggressive either, but he keeps that speed consistently over all sorts of terrain because of the tires. And the wheels are probably 20-inch wheels, so not that much bigger than what I had on the Brompton. But because of the wide tires, I think he has 3 or 4-inch wide tires, he can keep on pumping it forever because he's not hindered by any of the obstructions on the road. None of those speed checks or whatever they are called, speed bumps. None of that is a problem for him. He just goes past all of them. And I had a really hard time, putting him into the rear view mirror. And I was successful, but because of the ruggedness of his tires, it really makes a difference. But this is the only e-bike I ever raced in. I'm not in favor of doing this because e-bikes have never been aggressive. It's a myth that so many journalists and bloggers are trying to popularize that e-bikers are dangerous. In fact, it is always the road bike that is causing collisions and danger. Most of the e-bike riders are partly speed restricted and partly are not the type of people who bought their electric rigs to race anybody. They typically bought them for convenience and efficiency, to get to work and not break a sweat. None of these videos got more than a few dozen views. The one that got a little over 100 was this video about the Brompton, I think it's called the Brompton Championship or Olympics, that was held in Harlem, New York in 2019. We had no idea what would happen a few months later. This was just a little bit before the lockdown happened. And these are some of the last glimpses of a New York that, in my opinion, is not coming back. Not anytime soon. A fun race. After a while, I got tired of these action videos, and nobody expressed that much interest anyway. So I was just using them to show it to friends how fast my bike was and so on. And even though I gradually figured out how to overclock it and to go from 500 to 700 watts, I decided to publish stuff about technical things. Since I installed an airgun grip and it wasn't an easy fit, I did a video on that, and then I did another one on the larger tires that you can install on a Brompton. And they were the first videos that got over 1,000 views, which actually surprised me because I pretty much added this thing on. I published the videos really only for future reference for me, and also I did this as a way of keeping record. And in case a few dozen people would have discovered it and they could make some use of it, I was fine with that. But these are primitive videos and early videos, and yet so many people watch them. Some of these videos are still watched today. And so this was the first evidence to prove that content triumphs over form. So it doesn't matter how many fancy animations you add to a video. If there's no useful information in it, it's not going to be very popular. And the inverse is also true. You can put up a bare bones video, and if people are interested, they will watch it. The most popular video I have ever done is precisely one of those videos. This is about saddles. I think it's been more popular than the others because saddles are a concern not just for small wheel people, but for everyone. So this is appealing to a broader audience. And here is a more recent video that got a lot of attention. I'm not sure why, I can only guess. Maybe because the Aptera is not entirely a car. This is like an enlarged velomobile with the chain and the pedals removed. Some states, including New York, do not allow registration of a trike like this if it has pedals in it. I don't know if you could buy a large object like this with the pedals and maybe remove them for the period of the test or registration. So I really don't know the legality in every state, but the Aptera has worked a lot so that they would be allowed to be registered in most states, and I think they have achieved some kind of a deal with they have achieved some sort of a deal with about the helmet wearing as well, because the registration of a trike is a motorcycle registration in the US, at least in most states. Now, not all states even require a helmet if you have a motorcycle. The state of Connecticut certainly does not. New York does. So this is the history of this channel, going back to the beginning, and how it has come around from something that I considered nothing more than a hobby, really until last summer, the summer of 2023. That was the time when I finally had time to put out more content, and when I was starting to think about perhaps making more than a hobby out of it. What is going to come out of this, or what's going to be the final result, I really don't know. I do want to pursue it as a bit more of a hobby interest, maybe like a part-time business or something like that. And what seems to pull the most is technical videos. People are interested in the technology of it, but they might be interested in the car as well. So I don't know where this is going to end up, but this is something I wanted to say now that I have crossed 1,000 subscribers. The next landmark is going to be 10,000, and after that 100,000, if I'm still alive to make it that far. I don't know if I ever will. Just want to add a word of caution here. Should you build anything, if you have a titanium bike or an electric bike, I no longer race people, even if they challenge me on a on a greenway. Greenways are a dangerous place to do this. They are full of people with the stroller, the kid, the dog. So it's best to not accept the challenge. If you want to do a race against a road bike or anybody else, the place to do that is a place like the 9W in New Jersey, where most of the people from New York go, and most urban areas have some kind of a highway with a wide shoulder where you can do this. But keep in mind, this is seriously dangerous. Doing 25-30 miles an hour on small wheels, or taking it downhill at even more than 30, is seriously dangerous. So this is not recommended. If you do end up doing it, it's on you.